So number 3 step in our process here. If you didn't have alternatives, then you wouldn't have a decision to make. But if you considered all of the alternatives, or at least a wide enough range of alternatives, considering creative and desirable ones, your decision can be no better than your best alternative. Our next presentation does just that. It's called Purpose Filled in 30 Days by Kevin Dawson. Kevin is the Vice President of Agency Development, responsible for developing teams, people, and culture for the West Texas Office of Colonial Life. As chairman of the West Texas HR Symposium, Kevin oversees the largest regional conference on HR and business issues in West Texas. He is a certified professional for the Society of Human Resource Management and an executive rank for the Human Resources Advisory Council. A graduate of Midland College, Kevin also holds a certificate in regional JET standard certifications and an associate's in applied science and pilot preparation. As for the rest of Kevin's journey, I'm going to leave that to him. It is my great honor to introduce Kevin Dawson.
I got laid off today as I called my dad to deliver the news last May. That's the second time I've had to call him with feelings of initial despair, uncertainty about what comes next. This time was going to be different, though. As I gained my composure and opted to look towards the future, you see, it had only been a few months since an executive of the company I had been working for had called to tell me that I wasn't qualified, or I didn't have the right credentials to be getting so many speaking requests to talk to organizations who wanted to learn how to be better leaders. And to the outside world, that made sense. I'd only been in the corporate world for a decade, and my resume didn't look like that of John Maxwell or Marcus Buckingham or Zig Ziglar. Though getting laid off, that was the best thing that happened to me last year, because I knew who and what my purpose was going to help. And I just needed to take what I believed about myself and so many people who believed in me and go make it happen. See, 2 years ago, I launched a podcast talking about leadership with people in my network who wanted to be better leaders. And like so many other new ventures, it just wasn't gaining a lot of traction. In fact, that first episode, it took 100 days to get to 100 downloads. And even the audio quality wasn't that great at best. I had a good friend call me and said, "Hey, I had to turn the volume all the way up in my car just to hear you." And said, "But keep going, you're doing great." They saw in me my natural advantage, that I'm a builder, and that I love to start things and help people strategize new opportunities and new relationships. I was driven to succeed. See, it's that natural advantage in which we all have that makes us motivate for our quest for purpose. Let's snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. I guess we can save the rap for later. But as I moved forward in the fulfillment of my purpose last year, an amazing thing began to happen. See, my podcast journey had reached 25 episodes and included a friend who had competed on The Voice, being my biggest guest with 500 listeners that week, but still forging ahead and sharing great lessons in leadership. Though the last day I received a paycheck was the day that I booked my biggest guest. And we had an amazing conversation, and they would refer to me, some of their friends who were New York Times best-selling authors and spoken to thousands of leaders around the world, and yet they asked me for my advice, my thoughts on leadership strategy. I was completely humbled, but they said they saw something in me that comes from acquiring the right mindset, the right skills, and most importantly, being vulnerable. See, my passion has always been to help people become the best version of themselves by being inspired by the best version of myself. That would be the next Maverick as an awesome fighter pilot, but life had other plans. Instead of graduating from the U.S. Air Force Academy, I graduated from my local university with plans to fly for the airlines. While I was in flight school, though, I turned to education and leadership development and worked for a few nonprofit organizations and began to find myself being pulled deep into a world where big issues would consume my desire to find solutions. It became the ignition to fly my own career of inspiring the next generation of leaders. It eventually led me to an opportunity to work for a global organization, working for large employers around the country and inspiring others to be the best version of themselves, just as I believed I could. Yet I was still not living within my purpose, and I had yet to tackle the one thing holding me back, my fear of failure. See, every great superhero story begins with an origin story, and while I wasn't a super soldier like Captain America, my own initiative was just being formed. See, I had come from years of feeling like I had failed to live up to my own expectations. And I just couldn't understand why I hadn't had a breakthrough moment because there was just still so much self doubt and shame because I hadn't felt like I had accomplished anything. See, I had been growing in my career, my reputation, my network, and it still was like I was waiting for someone other than myself to give me permission to go do these things. And that only my expectations mattered when it came to a point where I allowed my purpose to give me permission. See, it was that day in May of 2020, the day that I got laid off, that I finally gave myself permission to go all in because I believed in the power of my purpose and did it ever go. Within 30 days of being laid off, the world changed for me. My purpose opened up new opportunities to inspire the world. My little podcast now has over 30,000 weekly listeners. Speaking engagements begin to tenfold. And craziest of all, an opportunity to star in a reality docuseries with leaders from around the world to solve some of the biggest social issues of our time. See, when you allow your purpose to be your permission, you've given yourself the ability to be and do amazing things. You've given yourself clarity about the things that you're here for and for what to do about it. See, I never set out to become more than anything than just someone who wanted to help others become better. Because I gave into my purpose to use my natural advantage as a builder, use skills as a strategist, use my passion as a problem solver, and allow myself to have that overcoming of my failures, I was able to change so much in so little. See, when you allow your purpose to give you permission to do, you can go do amazing things.